Hello friends, Vivi here. I wanted to get this video up yesterday, but due to the 4th of July holiday, things took a little longer than expected. I must say though, this story is definitely worth the wait. It's from the author Samus Cabrona, and you can find the link to this story on Reddit below. Be forewarned, it has some graphic violence and adult themes. All music comes from Dr. Creepin's SoundCloud, which is also linked below. Now, without further ado, every 13th of December, there is always someone who, with good enough intentions, wishes me a happy name day. I smile and thank them and hold it together for a while. Inevitably, I slump into my car or even my hallway with my back against the front door, and I fall apart. I've had to lie for so many years that in these moments once a year, the real memories are so fleshed out, so vivid, that I can feel the heat of the candlelight. I swear I can smell the wax. And then, the burning hair. I've had to cover these memories with fake ones in order to make any progress in therapy. You can't even talk about suicide without being committed for 72 hours, so imagine how long I would be locked up for if I told the truth, the real truth. And so, finally, with the anonymity of the internet and the shadow of the 13th of December far from this July sun, maybe it's time I peel back the rotting, clearly infected bandages and let the wounds breathe. When I was 13, I lived in a darling brownstone with my aunt and uncle. My cousin Miles was 5 years older and was away at his freshman year at college. The squirrely old house was also home to Clementine, Miles's calico cat, and to the best dog in the entire world, Soda Pop. My parents were killed unceremoniously by a drunk driver when I was a toddler. It was just a Wednesday night driving home from a movie. They were another statistic, just another sad and ineffective warning that made no impact on the decisions of others. The drunk driver had died too. There's still a small white cross at the four-way stop they all died in. They had died for nothing, senseless. My aunt and uncle were a little older than my parents, and their only son was grown. My Aunt Rachel had been my dad's older sister. Her and Uncle Mark were slightly old-fashioned in the sense that they wore matching Christmas sweaters and watched football after church. But they were also very accepting, and their fierce support of my openly gay cousin Miles was important in my own growing ideals. My golden birthday was approaching that Friday. Not only was it my name day, St. Lucy's Day, but I was also going to turn 13 on the 13th. I loved having my birthday on the onset of Christmastide, and the sparkling lights and warm, cozy decorations made me feel special, never overlooked. It also happened to be the kickoff to winter break from school, and the forecast had called for snow. Miles was coming home that weekend from college, and I remember waking up that Thursday giddy with the excitement of all these wonderful things happening as I entered my teens. I remember coming down the old squeaky staircase and turning into the kitchen when I saw Aunt Rachel sitting at her favorite chair with her head tilted to the side. I thought she was hilarious, the house phone tucked under her chin while she played a game on her iPhone in her hands. Soda Pop was laying on the braided rug next to the running dishwasher. He greeted me by opening his eyes and then rolling them back as he went back to his nap. He was a giant English bulldog, a birthday present from my aunt to my uncle 6 years back. When he came down the rickety staircase, he would run too quickly, and his paws would trip up on the carpet runner, and he had crashed several times, ass over head, into the banister at the landing. My uncle had constructed a crash pad at the bottom of the stairs made of a baby mattress and bungee straps. He had even hand-sewn a Christmas case for it, so it looked like a huge present at the bottom of the stairs. If you weren't a regular in the house, you would think it was just an extravagant decoration, not a landing pad for a fat, awkward bulldog. I was pouring myself a luscious, what my uncle called it. It was hot cocoa mix, vanilla creamer, and maybe a tablespoon of actual coffee. I hadn't heard Aunt Rachel get off the phone. "Lucy, baby, come here," she had said, her cell face down on the newspaper. I still had plenty of time before that last day of school, so I pulled a wooden chair out from the kitchen table and sat next to her. Clementine, Miles's cat, immediately leapt into my lap. "Lucy, baby, Miles is stuck at school right now. His roommate was supposed to give him a ride down south, but he broke his ankle last night during a pickup basketball game. They're expecting a snowstorm up there, and if I don't go get him now, he won't be here for your birthday, and he'll be at school all alone, and—" "Aunt Rach, it's fine. You don't need to worry," I had interrupted. Sometimes Aunt Rachel would be too cautious or anxious with me. I understood her intentions, and that I was all she had left of her brother, so I tried to reassure her when I could. "Really, I can walk to school, and if the snow is crazy, I can get a ride from Millie's mom, no problem." Millie lived down the street, but her mom was a teacher at our junior high, so she always drove, and often offered me a ride home. "Are you sure? I'm afraid we won't be back until late tonight because your uncle works until noon today." She had looked so worried I felt bad. "I'm fine. I've been alone at night before. I have soda pop and Clementine, and the Rainiers are literally right next door." I had hugged her shoulders and raised my eyebrows until she smiled and thanked me. They would be back before midnight, she promised, and I asked that Miles come say goodnight anyway. "And happy birthday, too," she called as I went off to school. I knew I would come home to an empty house, but I didn't know how bad the snow would get. Millie's mom had invited me to dinner and I accepted. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes. It was actually really good, and she had made me a sandwich for tomorrow, even though I knew I would probably be splitting it with Miles around midnight in the kitchen. It wasn't unusual for a late night gathering in the kitchen, with me sitting on the counter while Miles whipped up some amazing culinary creation with whatever we had in the kitchen. Sometimes Uncle Mark would even join us, and the lights would be on, and the pets would be underfoot, and you would think it was noon, not midnight. Knowing I would be home alone, Uncle Mark had lit the whole front of the house up. I remember crunching up the snow on the side steps to the kitchen and admiring the soft glow that the Christmas lights in the juniper bush made when they were covered in snow. My phone had rang as I was kicking my boots off in the mudroom, and it was Aunt Rachel. "Hi, Aunt Rachel. I just got home from Millie's house," I said, panting a little, with the effort of taking off my layers and struggling to open the door again to let a bumbling soda pop out into the yard to pee. The connection was horrible, and I had to ask her to repeat herself a few times. Finally, the connection was clear long enough to hear her say, "Lucy, baby, I'm so sorry. We are just leaving now. Miles's roommate Kyle was released after surgery, and he had no way to get home, so we helped him get to the train station. But, baby, the snow really kicked in, and it took us longer than we thought. I'm so, so sorry. We have the snow chains on, and we will be there as soon as we can." My heart sank a little. Miles's school was 4 hours away in the summer. It was already past 7, and I knew that they had to tack on another hour to drive in the snow, even with Miles driving. I didn't want Aunt Rachel to worry, so I told her, "Aunt Rach, it's okay. Really, I just got home. I'm fed. Soda's been out to pee, and we're gonna watch Christmas Vacation and crash. We will even camp out on the couch, so no matter what, you guys have to come wish me a happy birthday." I could hear her voice crack a bit as she thanked me for understanding and told me they would be home as soon as possible. After our I love yous and goodbyes, I took Soda Pop upstairs to stand guard while I took a hot shower. To this day, I don't remember if I locked the door or if I had even closed it. I guess it doesn't matter now. I woke up with my clothes still on and my towel on the bed next to me. I had laid down to look at my phone and fallen asleep. My jeans were sticking to me with nap time sweat, and I could feel the imprint of my quilt on my face. As I sat up, I could hear the howling of the wind outside, and I leaned over to see the weather had gone from flurries to full-on snowstorm. It was dark in my room, and the glowing clock on my dresser said it was 10:30. The only other light was from the St. Lucia ceramic lamp right outside my room on the small table. My aunt had painted her in a ceramic studio, and she glowed from a light bulb inside her dress and up on her head. Her wreath flickered with little fake candle lights. That's when I heard the creak on the stairs. Don't get me wrong, someone could sneeze down the street and those stairs would creak. It was how they creaked that caused me to hold my breath and sit completely still and search the room with my eyes for Soda. The staircase had a gasping sound when the wind blew or warm summer air rose up the steps. There was also the soft thumping sound that we affectionately called the ghost that happened when the central heating kicked on at night. Then there was the squiggling squeak that was only caused by someone pulling on the banister at the first two steps, where the steps turned left upwards, right at Soda's crash pad. There was no mistaking it. Someone had grabbed the banister. I tried to justify the sound. Maybe they were home already. Somehow. In record time. In a snowstorm. Maybe it was Soda Pop bounding down the stairs, and his tumbling had been what woke me up, so I didn't hear that he was responsible. Maybe for the first time in her life, Clementine had jumped onto the banister. But then, there was the silence afterwards that confirmed my worst fears. The ones I didn't want to bring to the surface yet. The ones heightened and clarified in cold reality by the way the creek ended. It wasn't natural fade out. It didn't travel softly up the railing and end at the top. It was a jerking, halting end to the creek. It was somebody not expecting the creek and freezing where they were. It was a heavy, 9 months pregnant pause in the air. It was a standoff. They knew I was here. I knew they were here. Just as I tensed my body up to quickly reach for my phone, I finally saw Soda Pop. For a split second, I felt safer. Then, under the dim light of St. Lucia, Soda Pop let out a scared and quiet whimper, and he backed up until I could no longer see him framed in the doorway. If Soda Pop was scared, I was terrified. Slipping my phone into my hoodie pouch pocket, I rolled to the ground off the mattress. The springs were a goddamn cacophony of rusty organs and trumpets. My knees landing on the rug around my bed were the ground-shaking bass lines, and my stumblings to the bathroom door were the cymbals and hi-hat. This was no longer possibly in my head. This was not a raccoon. This was not the fucking wind. This was a somebody. And this somebody was coming for me. I ran through the tiled bathroom that Miles and I shared and into his pitch-dark bedroom. Holding my breath in while it was trying to burst from my lungs was no small feat as I peeked around the door on my knees. I looked to the left down the hallway lit by St. Lucia, and I saw a very distinct shape disappear into my room. I tripped and ran right down the darkened end of the hall, past the laundry room and den and to the upstairs door. The crystal doorknob was ice cold, and I fumbled with the old lock above it, but it mercifully opened, and with all of my intention and energy, I ran out onto the stairs that went up the back of the house. The first thing I noticed in my panic was that the floodlight that was normally over the door was out. I soon found out why, as I felt hundreds of shards of light bulb glass pierce my socks and then my feet. The pain from the glass and the shock from the snow didn't stop me from blindly rushing down the stairs, which explains why I didn't see him, the second person. But even through the snow, he saw me clearly enough to know to force me up the stairs with his gloved hand over my mouth. I tried to bite through, but the gloves were thick. I couldn't kick. My feet had glass wedged in them, and as I tried to whip my head away, I felt the other one, the first one, behind me. He grabbed my hair all the way at the roots at the top of my head and yanked me back up the stairs. The Rainiers' back wall was right next to our far east one. The only reason privacy wasn't an issue is that the only window we had upstairs on that side was the far water closet that was frosted over. The Rainiers' fireplace and chimney ran along their back wall and only had windows downstairs that were covered with snowflake patterned curtains. Mrs. Rainier was probably no more than 20 feet from my bleeding, freezing, and struggling body, and she had no idea. Within seconds, they had me back inside, the two of them, both in black ski masks and black boots and gloves. The one behind me carried me by my hair as I struggled to ease the nauseating pressure at my scalp. The other carried my feet, and when he let go with one arm to close the door, I tried to kick him. Mistake. Huge. Not only did a shard of glass slice further into my foot, but that shard also cut through his jeans and sliced his kneecap. This made him very angry. He threw both my feet down hard onto the floor. He stomped directly across my legs and knees with his boots and kicked me hard in the belly. When I screamed, his partner held my hair tight so he could punch the side of my mouth with no room for error. I slumped over and covered my face. Silently sobbing, I was dragged past my cousin's room, where I could hear Soda hiding and whimpering. I didn't blame him one bit. These were not local kids looking to steal drug money. These were not reluctant criminals forced into this life to survive. These were fucking madmen. As the first taller one dragged me towards my room, I heard the other one knocking things over in my aunt and uncle's room. A tinkling, then shattering sound came as he dumped her jewelry box onto the floor. I heard him recklessly crunch her beloved bracelet charms beneath his boots, and I cried harder. "Where's the safe, bitch?" He had grabbed my throat while the other one held my hair tight in his fist. He looked me in the eyes, and I could tell through the ski mask that he was white with blue eyes. From the skin I could see around his eyes, he was younger than I thought. I didn't bother memorizing any other features because I knew they were going to kill me. That Aunt Rachel would die of heartbreak. That they would sell the house and never look back. Another brutal slap across the face. "Where's the fucking safe, bitch?" He held my head pressed against his partner's knees. "There isn't a safe. We don't have one," I barely choked out. It was honestly the first time I had even heard about a safe. Money? Documents? The only thing that made any sense would be a fireproof safe with important family documents. This was an old house. It was a beautiful house, but we didn't have a goddamn safe. Uncle Mark was not the type for weapons, and he would have kept any money in the bank or a safety deposit box. Another punch across my jaw, and I felt my tooth come free and hit the back of my throat. "Listen, bitch, you tell us where the safe is and we can get out of here. You don't tell us, and we'll have to find another way to spend our time here." He laughed as he stood up, using my face for support. As he stood up, he knocked over the table holding St. Lucia. Somehow, all of her porcelain body and wreath fell to the ground with only one casualty, her left hand. It snapped off, and now the light shone through it like a lantern, a stream of gold light across the hallway floor. "Why bother wasting time?" The first one laughed and, twisting my hair in his hands, got in front of me. He rammed both knees into my hips and yanked my hair back. "Oh," he said, his pale face sweating through the ski mask. "You're a cute little bitch. Fucking gingered, too. I like that. You all ginger?" He held me down at my chest, and with his knees on my hips, he began to pull at my jeans. What little life I had left in me began screaming for herself, and I felt my legs burning as they twisted and flailed until I could kick. And then I kicked hard. I made contact with his knee, but it also rammed the broken glass up into my foot so badly that I knew I couldn't stand on it, no matter what my will was. A sick laughter came from the closet in Uncle Mark and Aunt Rachel's room. "You never could handle skinny Irish bitches, Don." The laughter became a scathing voice. "Shut the fuck up!" Don yells at his friend, falling backwards onto his back with his left hand flung above his head. I knew my will was gone. But somehow, something had lit Soda Pop's will on fire, and he came bursting out of Miles's room with a fierce snarl and bit the bare wrist showing between Don's glove and jacket sleeve. Don's screams were first met with laughter, his friend thinking I was getting the better of him. This gave Soda Pop time to dig deep into his basic survival and protection instinct. Something in this sweet, lazy dog had snapped. There was a sickening, wet, crunching sound, and with a final loud snarl, Soda whipped his head back, and in his mouth was Don's pinky finger and a chunk of his hand, pieces of fat and white tendrils hanging in his teeth. Don's screams for his friend Mitch finally beckoned his friend, who burst into the hallway with a black handgun. Before I could scream for Soda to run, the gun was going off, and Soda had already clumsily but quickly ran across my body and face, Don's blood dripping into my eyes and mouth. I heard the telltale smashing sound of Soda hitting the crash pad and skittering down the last 2 steps downstairs. He would know where to hide. He would leave Don's fucking piece of shit hand somewhere and hide someplace else. He would be okay. Soda Pop would be okay. The gun and the bite had caused dark and violent hysteria in the narrow hallway. In his anger, Don had attempted to chase Soda. He tripped over the St. Lucia figurine and slammed into the floor, shaking the house. I looked straight up from the floor where I was and saw St. Lucia's face had broken off perfectly, like a mask. Her perfect porcelain face had skipped across the floorboards and was within reach. Without knowing why, I grabbed her face to keep in my hand. Just as I closed my fingers over her face, Mitch stepped on my hand, and pushing all his weight, I felt the sharp porcelain edges break into my skin. I screamed and was answered with a booted kick to my ribs. Mitch propped me up against the wall and said, "No safe, huh, bitch? Why your old man keep this in the closet then? What's he protecting?" "His family?" I said, and felt a painful wrenching coming from my throat. Before I could stop myself, I was vomiting up my tooth. It was forceful and painful, the kind of vomit that makes sure you know you have food poisoning. The hot, acrid bile splashed right into Mitch's face. He screamed and ripped the mask off, revealing a 30-something sunken face. He had sores all over his cheeks and lips, and a blue tattoo below his bottom lip that read, "Filth." I remember knowing at this moment that there was no way I would survive this. I knew names, and now a face. They would rape and kill me, and possibly my family if they came home soon. It had to have been an hour since I woke up. It had to have been another lifetime since I had come home from Millie's. Millie. My phone was still in my pocket. Hers was the last number I had dialed. After I spoke to Aunt Rachel, I had called Millie to let her know I got in the house safely. I forced myself to my knees and scrambled to get behind a door. Anything to buy myself a split second just to hit the send button twice. She would hear them, right? She would call the police? My aunt and uncle? Don finally came back with his hand looking like roadkill. He grabbed my foot and squeezed hard, the glass going not only further into my skin, but into his as well. Madmen. I flung the top part of my body into my room and kicked and kicked and kicked while I fumbled for my phone in my pocket. My bloody hands thankfully swiped it open, and I hit the phone icon. Sure enough, Millie's name popped up. I hit it again just as Don climbed on top of me, and I threw the phone under my dresser and prayed Millie would answer and hear what was happening. I hear the porcelain in the hallway now being ground to a pulp, and I know nothing of the statue remains by the bare naked light scattered around the floor. Don bashed my head against my dresser, and I swore I heard Millie's voice far away. I finally began to scream, "Get away from me! Get away!" I screamed so loud that bile crept its way back up my throat. I got another knee to the ribs, and Don told me, "Bitch, don't think because your fucking dog bit me that you're gonna make it out of here. Maybe before we would have let you live, but now, bitch, you're gonna die bleeding from every place possible." I kept screaming. I kicked both legs out until Mitch came over, smelling of vomit, and punched my bare stomach. When I curled up as a reaction, he violently yanked my jeans to my knees. When I screamed again, he held the handgun to my mouth, pressed it so hard against my teeth I swore they were going to break. I was pressing my head back so hard into the dresser drawer with my eyes closed that I didn't notice at first. I was waiting for them to hurt me again, to rape me. But the pause was too long, and then, even with my eyes closed, I could see the room fill with flickering light, and I felt the heat on my ripped and bare skin. I opened my eyes. She was holding Don by the throat, her hands long and pale, her fingers bony and pointed. Her nails so long that they dug into his throat, and blood was spilling over her sharp knuckles and seeping into the cracks between her fingers, like the lips of a pale child eating blackberries. She was standing over me, but I couldn't see her feet or even the bottom of her dress. The light was so bright and hot that I knew with no doubt that the floor of my room, that my house, was on fire. Mitch lunged at her, gun in hand. Another sickly long arm burst from her dress directly under the first one. With it, she rammed her long fingernails into his open mouth. She ripped downward. I turned away, but I could tell from his gagging noises that she had ripped him clean from the tongue down. His body lands in a heap inches from the fire. Her two left hands had also burst from her dress, and she used the uppermost one to take the gun from Mitch's hand. I slowly got up to my knees, my hands over my head. I covered my eyes but wanted to see death before she took me too. She was radiant. Her forearms had softened in suppleness, and her fingernails had rounded. Her skin was plump and alabaster. Replacing the sharp rib cage and bones was a soft, glowing breast. Her wreath sat perfect upon a writhing and wind-blown nest of perfect black hair. It whipped all around her like she was in an invisible current. Her face, only the chin and bottom lip visible. Her bottom lip, so perfectly shaded blood red, was shadowed by what covered the rest of her face. A horse skull, white and glowing, with vacant eyes and only the upper row of teeth, her hair impossibly growing from the skull of it. I was so transfixed I didn't hear the sirens or Millie's faraway screaming. I felt the floor of my room burning, but I couldn't stop staring. With her two upper hands, she held my face. With her lower left one, she strongly and softly pulled my jeans up. And with her last hand, this one still skeletal and angry, she handed me the gun. And just like that, she was gone. Don dropped to the floor, choking. Mitch made no sound. From the smell of his burning hair, I knew he was dead. At this point, I heard the sirens, and so did Don. He rushed at me, and with no thought in my head except for my parents, I fired the gun, right into his throat. The gunshot caused the police to rush in and up the stairs, Soda Pop barking and running alongside them. Later, the police told me they had to ask Soda to drop the remains of the hand into an evidence bag, to which he complied. The fire department moved so quickly that the next thing I remembered was being on a stretcher and hearing Aunt Rachel screaming. As they were putting me in the back of the ambulance, she threw herself inside. "Lucy, baby, what happened? Oh my God, your face. The police said home invaders. Oh my God, baby, oh my God, this is my fault." I lifted my hand to tell her no, it wasn't, but the paramedic had strapped my arms down. I remember hearing Uncle Mark calling for Clementine as we drove away from our blazing home. Neither of the men who terrorized me that night lived. They found the bullet I fired lodged in the wall of my bedroom, but both bodies had been burnt beyond recognition. Fortunately, the fire had been contained to the upstairs hallway and my room. The police had found out it was my birthday, and after coming to tell me in the hospital that both deaths were ruled self-defense, they had brought me a cake. They also had one for Soda Pop and a medal for him. I was in the hospital a week, had my birthday and name day there. I had 2 surgeries and skin grafts done. When they finally allowed me to get up to go to the bathroom on my bandaged feet, I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I was a swollen lump of clay, dark blue stitches and purple blood vessels. I had expected that, though. What I didn't expect, and what doctors chalked up to shock, was my hair. Once the nurses had cleaned the matted blood out and helped me shampoo it in the shower chair, I had felt like a new person. It wasn't until Aunt Rachel was combing it that I knew something was off. She stood over me with the comb still in the air, the leave-in conditioner still dripping from the ends. She was frozen. "What is it? Are there stitches?" I had asked. "No, look." And for the second time I looked in the mirror, but this time I saw what she saw. My long ginger hair. It was jet black, but it was beautiful. It was shiny and strong, and I swear it was even longer than yesterday. I didn't do this, Aunt Rach, I swear," I had pleaded. "No, I know you didn't. You look beautiful, like your mother," she said, and went back to combing. When I finally got to go home, it was almost Christmas. We were all camping out downstairs while the cleaning service worked upstairs. I had been lucky that the fire had been contained. Most of my belongings had been salvageable, and only the bed sheets and carpet smelled of smoke to the point they were tossed. I wasn't complaining. I didn't want them anymore anyway. My family had gone out of their way to make me a special birthday / coming home / sorry you were assaulted dinner party. They invited my friends, and despite a few moments of Millie's mom crying out of guilt, it was very nice. I got to open presents and even fell asleep in the middle of it. I woke up Christmas Eve morning to a flurry of snow and Miles bringing me a luscious. "I love the hair, girl," he says as he slips his fingers through the ends. "It's like magic hair." I hugged him, and immediately Soda Pop toppled himself over to join in. Before school started again, my room was back to normal and the hallway had been repaired. We were putting away all the holiday decorations. Aunt Rach, I'm really sorry about the St. Lucia statue, I said, sadly looking where my otherworldly savior had once stood. What about her? Rachel asked, popping her head out of a large Tupperware tote full of bunting. That night, she broke in the whole, assault, I said, my face feeling hot. She did? Where? I didn't even notice. Aunt Rachel slid over a new tote and dug around show boxes until she found what she was looking for. Where? Did you glue her? Aunt Rachel asked. I came to her side and looked in her hands. Unbelievably, St. Lucia was in one piece, not one scratch on her. Aunt Rachel plugged her in, and she glowed brighter than ever from her gown and the candles wreathed around her head. See? She survived, Aunt Rachel said as she went to pack her up. Wait, can she stay in my room all year as a nightlight? I asked. Of course she can, Aunt Rachel said, and set her on my new dresser. She is with me to this day. She sits on a shelf in my room, and only when I close the door behind me can I thank her. Only when nobody who would have me committed or mock me is around do I have the safety to thank her for saving my life that night. The others, my family, my therapist, my friends, they all know about the beating I received from two adult men. They know about the attempted sexual assault. They know about the fire and my putting a bullet through the throat of a man trying to kill me when I was 13. But they'll never know how she was the patron saint of preteen girls that night. They'll never know that I can never proudly and defiantly praise her and thank her. That she, in all her terrifying beauty, was the one who saved me. I hope you liked that story as much as I did. If you did, hit that like button and hopefully subscribe as I have another story coming up this weekend. This story will be one of my own. A friend of mine, Lance, requested a ghost story, so I am writing it now and I will be able to present it to you sometime this weekend. So, have a wonderful night. Thanks for listening and take care.